you, I can't see you, but I sure hope that you will take part in what I'm about to ask you to do. Will you type in the chat one word that describes the experience you've had this week with bigBANG, Equity in Action? One word. Can't wait to see what pops up. Are you typing? Oh, good. We've got another amazing program planned for you. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into our conference theme of Equity in Action. And here's what you have to look forward to. A conversation with Rosalind Dawson Thompson, President and CEO of the Texas Women's Foundation, and Ted Bunch, who is the co-founder of A Call to Men. Susan Hoff and Andrea Gillespie of United Way will engage in a discussion with Angela Glover Blackwell of PolicyLink. Brian Hooks, co-author of Believe in People, a guidebook to inspiring progress in our communities, and national civil rights leader and race relations expert, Reverend Dr. Buster Soares. The breakout sessions today will cover women in STEM, centering the leadership of young women of color, equity in the arts, equity in healthcare, and a workshop to increase your Hispanic and Latino cultural IQ. We'll also have the pleasure of experiencing a special performance from the Turtle Creek Chorale. And then at lunch, we have something really fun planned, a virtual luncheon with Dallas celebrity Chad Hauser of Cafe Momentum and Ashley Kleinhardt of the Kleinhardt Foundation. Wow, are you ready? Keep those comments rolling in because I can't wait to read them on my break. I'm gonna ask Matthew Randazzo to join me, President and CEO of the Dallas Foundation and bigBANG's powering sponsor, to kick off the day. The Dallas Foundation is the oldest community foundation in the state and is involved in many forward-looking, impact-driving initiatives around North Texas. Over to you, Matthew.
Great, thank you, Elfrida. Thanks so much for your leadership and in the community and for your sponsorship of this work. I'm delighted to be here with you all today. Thank you for dialing in for yet another webinar. I trust that our friends at bigBANG will have just an excellent day ahead, as Elfrida just previewed. So with that, you know, right now, Dallas is living in a moment when 400 years of history are coming to a crescendo, and our community is having sustained and meaningful conversations about race, equity, and inclusion. As I think about this, I think about Dallas as a place where remarkable opportunity and crippling inequality coexist. And I think we must hold those two truths, and we must confront the comfort, the discomfort that it causes. If we think about the opportunities in this region, they're vast. We're among the fastest growing MSAs in the country. We are attracting new Fortune 500 companies at an enviable clip. McKesson, Charles Schwab, Toyota, the most recent examples. We often have among the most unfilled $100,000 jobs of any major metropolitan area in the country. And we are consistently ranked as among the most charitable cities in the country. These are remarkable assets to have as in a community. And yet, 1 in 3 children in Dallas live in poverty. We have among the largest racial wage and wealth gaps in the country. Only 2 in 5 Dallas ISD third graders read on level, putting us behind Austin, El Paso, the Texas state average, and putting us on par with Houston. On any given day, Dallas ISD is educating roughly 3,500 homeless children. How can we possibly square these two lived realities for our community? The biggest risk, I believe, is that we tend to believe our own press releases in Dallas. We want to focus on all that is good without really tackling the structural inequalities that have left so many of our neighbors behind. So if we want to really be in the business of reducing childhood poverty and closing racial wage gaps and ending family homelessness, this demands that we completely rethink our systems, public, private, and nonprofit alike, through a race and gender equity lens. Without such an approach, we will always tinker at the margins and will claim victories that aren't meaningful or sustainable. Comfort and growth, especially as it relates to race equity and inclusion, are mutually exclusive, period, paragraph, and we have to be able to power through that. This type of growth requires deep reflection, recognition of how we each perpetuate inequality in our community, grappling with the loss of power, influence, expertise, and committing to act in a profoundly different way moving forward. Y'all, it's hard, it's iterative, it's messy. We'll make mistakes along the way. Ideally, we'll learn from those mistakes, rinse and repeat, and we'll bridge to a more just and equitable community where all of our neighbors can thrive. But let's be clear, anything short of doing the work means we fall short of our full potential as a community. And so while these conversations are critical and encouraging, they must give way to intentional, if not urgent, action. We can't just admire the problem. We cannot squander this moment to dramatically rethink how we build community in a more equitable way. The Dallas Foundation started this journey 2 years ago to ensure that, one, we diversify and democratize philanthropy, both for those who give and those who receive. Philanthropic redlining is a real thing, and it must be combated at the individual and institutional funder levels. Secondly, we have focused on intentionally building a board that is more representative of our community. Our board is roughly half and half with male and female representation, and 2/3 of our board leadership positions are held by women. Just under 1/3 of our board members identify as people of color. We have LGBTQ representation on the board, and we have next generation representation on the board. This is one of the ways in which we are striving to build an institution that is more reflective of the communities that we serve. We've also focused on recruiting a team of professionals that's more reflective of the community. About 1/4 of our staff identifies as people of color, and we continue to diversify our team and therefore the philanthropic sector through intentional hiring and strategic human capital partnerships. And while both of these data points with regard to staff and board representation are high watermarks for the institution's 91-year history, I would present to you that they are a floor, not a ceiling. That the intentional work that we have taken over the course of the last 2 years is the start of what will be a broad journey toward equity within the 4 walls of our institutions. And what's so critical is that these decisions, y'all, they ultimately impact how we support the community and who we fund. So if you think about the composition of the board, the composition of the staff, this has allowed us to do several things in service of equity. First, our board empowered a group of African-American leaders to direct our Patullo Field of Interest Fund to ensure that African-Americans were directing funds intended to improve the Black community in Dallas. This is seemingly a no-brainer, but so critically important to invite folks from the community who have the lived experience to actually direct the philanthropy. We need to see more of this across the philanthropic sector. Our COVID grant making used an equity lens whereby more than 60% of all of our COVID-19 relief grant making met our equity criteria, a milestone never previously reached in our grant making. This fall, we opened up funding specifically focused on racial equity advocacy and capacity building to help other organizations seize this moment. And in 2 weeks, we launched the start of our race, equity, and inclusion work with our donor-advised fund holders. In any given year, the Dallas Foundation staff and board directs a few $1 million worth of philanthropy. Our generous donor partners in any given year put between $40 and $50 million out into the community. And so inviting them along to learn with us, inviting them to understand what a racial equity lens in grant making looks like is one of the most meaningful things that we can do to help ensure that resources are getting to the right places in our community. At the end of the day, it's quite simple, y'all. If you diversify the decision makers at the table, outcomes change. And that's the work that philanthropy must take on. that's the work that we all must take on collectively in this work. You know, 20 years ago, the Dallas Foundation helped to incubate and launch Social Venture Partners Dallas. We're deeply proud of that work, and I count it as some of our most consequential work. Thank you, Tony, for your leadership throughout the pandemic and for creating a space for this conversation to happen. And more importantly, for the talent of your partners who can actually make meaningful change to ensure that Dallas is a better, brighter, more equitable community. And so, thank you all for your time today. I wanted to just quickly tee up the next presentation. The Family Place Partner Card launches tomorrow. My wife and I are big Partner Card fans. We buy one every year, and we want to make sure that the Big Bang audience knows that it's coming. The Partner Card is the signature fundraiser for the Family Place, which is the largest family violence agency in Texas and a premier charity shopping and dining event in DFW. Now in its 28th year, Partners Card has raised over $20 million to help break the cycle of family violence in our community. Next up is a video to explain the work they do and why the Partner Card is so important. Thanks, y'all. Be well.
Hi, my name is Paige Flank. I'm the CEO of the Family Place. At the Family Place, our mission is to stop family violence. We try to address the trauma that people have experienced from living in their homes where they've been hurt by the one who's supposed to love them by providing counseling, emergency shelter, other housing opportunities, job training to help them escape, helping the children, helping the batterer, and also working to prevent it by teaching teens how to have healthy relationships. Family violence is a problem in our community that can be prevented, but it's also the problem that is at the root of many of the issues our community faces. Poverty, poor performance in schools, the use of drugs and alcohol, crime on our streets all tie back to a home that had trauma and violence against the people who lived there. We can do something about this, and we need financial support to be able to do something about it.
Purchase Partners Card benefiting the Family Place, presented by Bank of Texas, and save money at some of your favorite retailers and restaurants, both online and around DFW. October 30th to November 8th, 100% of the proceeds from card sales benefit the Family Place, the largest family violence nonprofit in Texas. One Partners Card provides one night of safety at the Family Place shelters. Save money and save a life. Visit partnerscard.org for details.
The Family Place, such an important community resource. Next up is our breakfast panel. I know you've been waiting for this. Their topic of conversation is adapting corporate social responsibility in a changing world. I'm going to hand it over to Creighton Webb of SunWest Communications to introduce our panelist. Take it away, Creighton.